Welcome to today's episode of me reviewing various highlights. It's a new week, and I had a busy weekend. I hope you had a fun weekend as well. And let's get started. The first one being from Remote Not Distant. Feedback is not an objective truth, but a perspective. Peers are encouraged to write in I language. I language refers to you're referring to yourself, not say at not describe things as they are, generally speaking, but it's my perspective that I feel that you did something, rather than saying you did not demonstrate something. The latter is kind of like a general sweeping statement, whereas the first one shows that it's my perspective. No numerical ratings or rankings are used. Peer feedback captures how employees have been inspired, touched, or hurt by their colleagues. And this is it's just one aspect, one highlight that comes in Remote Not Distant. Of course, there is a lot of discussion in this book called Thanks for the Feedback, which we have covered various times on this on this series. So yeah, it's kind of a nice concise summary of what feedback is. And if you want to know more, if you want to understand this perspective more, Thanks for the Feedback is a great book to go into depth in this aspect. The crux of this point being that feedback is always a perspective, and that should reflect in the language, the I language, and not reduce feedback into things like numerical ratings or rankings. We have discussed in this book as well. Measure what matters. That the way to measure OKRs, the performance, the individual's performance in respect with their OKRs, is to have conversations. And again, I won't go too deep into that. Let's move on. Getting things done. In my experience, anything that is held only in your head will take up either more or less attention than it deserves. The reason to collect everything is not that everything is equally important, it's that it's not. Incompletions, uncaptured, take on a dull sameness in the sense of pressure they create and the attention they tie up. The point is that if we keep everything in our head, our brains have this tendency to, the author goes on to describe all of this, our brains have the tendency to kind of put everything on the same level. So there is an example, a similar example that we would probably give the same importance to um, you know picking up the laundry and a quarterly board meeting, for example, because in our head they'll kind of take the same importance. And if you have dedicated this time to think about the or plan for the board meeting, the laundry will keep coming back to get you, that okay, you still need to do this. And that is why we have to get that out of our heads into a reliable system, and we have discussed at length about this. The book also, of course it's from the book, that it goes into a lot of depth in all of these aspects. So yeah, anything that is held only in your head will take up more or less attention than it deserves. So get it out of your head. That's the point. Choose possibility. Western societies in particular seem to emphasize linear thinking, whereas thought processes in Eastern cultures tend to be more holistic and less logical. As the psychologist Nick Hobson describes it, we in the West are analytic thinkers, meaning we see the world in a linear fashion, carving out separate events and peering at them through a lens of cause and effect. We are rule bound and systems oriented, and we are drawn in by focal events. Um, I not recalling the context of this. The what the author is saying over here. I'm not recalling that at this moment. Other than that, I think the passage itself, the highlight itself, is pretty straightforward. That drawing the comparisons and our thought processes between different cultures, and of course there are many other books that go into depth. It's difficult to imagine. I get that us living in one culture, it's very difficult for us to imagine that a thinking philosophy could be radically different for another group of human beings. It's very difficult to imagine that, but it happens. We have seen different examples, and um, I'm not sure. Maybe this is another book that I've read on this subject. Not on this subject, but close to it, and it goes quite deep into different aspects of different cultures. Is Think Again, And of course, there is also this book Anthrovision, which goes into depth in these different cultures. How do you look at different cultures? It's of course, it's a book about anthropology. So yes, yeah, let's move on. Measure what matters. We just mentioned it. At fledgling startups and market leaders alike, stretch goals can sharpen an entrepreneurial culture. By pushing people past old limits, they are forces for operating excellence. The author is talking about stretch goals, the importance of having a stretch goal. Some of your OKRs should really be stretch goals, and stretch goals. It it really just means that goals that seem difficult, very difficult to achieve, almost impossible, but you have that because you want to stretch yourself. You want to have like a moonshot, that kind of thing. So yeah, in comparison, there are like regular operational goals. Goals that you're anyway that you're anyway supposed to meet, and those are operational OKRs. Those are OKRs you may have to kind of keep things running. You may want to use OKRs to even measure those goals, but really the whole purpose of OKRs is having stretch goals. Moving on, the well lived life. We often don't interact with one another because we don't want to get our hands dirty. We don't want to deal with what we perceive to be others' deficits. We want to protect ourselves so we can't be disappointed, but in the process, we miss out on life. I think this appears in that section on community, and we have discussed on different passages from this section as well. And this goes on to describe that the reason that we avoid community or avoid others' company or in short, avoid relying on somebody else is that we don't want to get our hands dirty. We don't want to get hurt, basically. So, like the second line says, we don't want to deal with what we perceive to be others' deficits. This is especially true for perfectionists. That if something is not happening in a particular way, we can't tolerate it. And yeah, so that's what this highlight talks about. Moving on, kill it with fire. Technology is never done, but modernization projects can be. The author is talking about having an end goal to a refactoring project. So, having a modernization project, you can and should call it done state that okay, this is when this project is this modernization, refactoring, rewrite, whatever that's done. Technology is never done because yeah, as you approach the end of modernization, it may be that okay, whatever technology you're using now, there is the next big upgrade to that, or there is a next big thing like a new framework or a new library that's coming up, and now that seems like a better fit for the modernization. But the important thing is to call it done, that because these things will keep happening. Technology is never done, like the author says. Uh, you have to call it done. You have to call your modernization project done at some point of time so that you can move on and look at the system holistically. That um, take a step back and see what is needed in the system. The author, of course, talks a lot about this, and generally speaking, in the context of um, preparing for a modernization. So, if you don't call your modernization project done, you'll never be able to take that step back. So, yeah, getting things done. It's a long one. The purpose of this whole method of workflow management is not to let your brain become lax, but rather to enable it to be free to experience more elegant, productive, and creative activity. In order to earn that freedom, however, your brain must engage on some consistent basis with all your commitments and activities. You must be assured that you're doing what you need to be doing and that it's okay to be not doing what you're not doing. That facilitates the condition of being present, which is always the optimal state from which to operate. Very similar to what I just described a little earlier. That is, you want to get things out of your brain so that your brain is free to focus on the things that actually matter at this moment. Like the author says, to experience more elegant, productive, and creative activity. And that is why you need the reliable system, as the author goes on to say over here, that you need a reliable system so that the brain can that you can deal with the consistent sorry you can deal with the commitments and activities on an ongoing basis in a reliable manner. And that is when your brain starts to disassociate your brain starts to call things done, and you can focus on the things that you need to focus at right now. And that is why You need a reliable system. Again, I'm not going in depth in what is a reliable system. We have discussed that many times. So you need a reliable system to track whatever you need to do, so that your brain can focus on what it needs to do at this moment. Moving on, the well lived life. You're here for a reason. Each of us is here to connect with our unique gift. That this is what activates our desire to be alive. Achieving this connection isn't necessarily the point. The search counts for far more. The process of finding our juice keeps us vital. So I think this is from the first chapter where the author talks about what she describes as juice, or energy flow, or the drive that kind of drives passion in us, related to anything. But like, that's our juice, that's our energy flow, drive, or whatever. That's the juice that the author refers to over here. So the author is linking to the energy flow, and our purpose in life, or let's say our passion in life. So each of us is here to connect with our unique gift, and this is what activates our desire to be alive. That's where we thrive. It's not just a question of surviving, right? We That's like the regular adage between surviving and thriving. So this is what activates our desire to be alive, and this is what causes us to this is what causes us to thrive. And like the author says, the search counts for far more. It's not really the end goal is not really the point, it's the search that matters. Moving on, getting things done. Okay, another repetition. Many people use the inevitability of an almost infinite stream of immediately evident things to do as a way to avoid the responsibilities of defining their work and managing their total inventory. It's easy to get lured into not quite so critical stuff that is right at hand, especially if your entry and your personal organization are out of control. Too often, managing by wandering around is an excuse for getting away from amorphous piles of stuff. That's one of the things about this book. The book, the concepts, and everything are great, but I think it's very convoluted. The reading of this, the different passages, the writing style of this book, I find it to be very convoluted. It needs like little bit more effort to understand. So the author is talking about us taking a step back and planning out our day, or planning out our activities, or taking up a total inventory of everything that we need to do, listing out everything that's on our minds. And like, that's one of the activities in the book, that you list out everything in your inbox, and then you process them into tasks given a framework. And we would use our business as as an excuse that, oh, we are too busy to do any of these things. And like, this comes to my mind, this anecdote about sharpening the axe. That if you have 6 hours to chop down a tree, you will spend 4 hours sharpening your axe. That kind of thing. So that comes to my mind, and this is really sharpening the axe. That um, you're planning out what you need to do. You're planning out everything that you need to do, and put it in this system, whatever system, one of the systems over here, the framework that the author describes. And we use our business as an example. And that's really what the author is talking about. Of course, the author goes on to talk about the benefits of having following a system, because you need to do this activity once, and then if you keep following it, if you're staying consistent at it, like we have described in different highlights today and before, then all of these things do get in control. That's the point. That's the point of following this system. Moving on, getting things done. Okay, I think today's episode is titled "Getting Things Done." Whereas the three lower levels are mostly to do with the current state of things, your actions, projects, and areas of responsibility. From horizon three, up the factors of the future, and your direction and intentions are primary. I was just saying it's a little difficult, so I've lost context of this one, and let me see. Oh yeah, this is talking about like the five horizons, six horizons really. So horizon one to five, and there is like a baseline layer. That's how you see how you should plan out your goals. And the lower levels are actions, projects, and areas of responsibility. So like, the first layer, the I'm forgetting if it's the topmost layer or the bottommost layer, but the first layer you deal with are your actions. And then you take it to the next level of abstraction, that's projects, and then your areas of responsibility. And those are things to do with your current state of things. That is the work that you're doing right now. And uh, on top of that horizon, it's more future oriented things like plans and vision, and your goals in life, like a long term goal, something like 5 year or 10 year goal, those kind of things. The author doesn't use the word aspiration, but that's one other thing I'm taking over here, that the things that you aspire to, aspiration in sense of um, like what we have discussed in the highlights from the earned life. There is a lot of discussion about action versus aspiration, sorry, ambition versus aspiration in that book. And I think just last week we discussed some passages in that context. So yeah, that's what the author is referring to, the different horizons, the different scopes of our, of everything that we want to do or that we have to do. That brings us to an end of today's highlights. Uh, Fairly fun, like I said. Mostly everything is from getting things done, and then few more from the well-lived life. So a lot of repetition today. But yeah, I think this one is an episode on productivity. So with that, have a good day. Bye.